The drive up to the estate felt like ascending into another world, one made of old money and older secrets. The iron gates, ornate and black, groaned open without a soul in sight to push them. They closed behind my beat-up sedan with a heavy, final clang. Jason had called this place a country home. That was like calling the Titanic a decent-sized boat. The main house was a monster of dark stone and ivy, with more windows than I could count, all of them like vacant eyes staring down at me. My life for the next year, at least, all in exchange for my family's debt being wiped clean. It seemed like a fair trade, or it did until I stepped inside. The air was cold, still, the kind of still that absorbs sound. My footsteps on the marble floor didn't echo, they just died. A line of staff stood waiting, men and women in crisp gray uniforms. They all had the same blank look, the same practiced emptiness in their eyes. A woman who seemed to be in charge, older, with her hair in a severe bun, stepped forward. "Welcome, Mrs. Morrow," she said. Her voice was flat, without a trace of warmth. "We are here to serve you. Your husband, Mr. Morrow, will be back this evening." I tried a smile. "Thank you. You can call me Amelia." She just gave a slight, mechanical nod. "As you wish." They never spoke unless spoken to, and even then it was just short, clipped answers. It was efficient and deeply unsettling. I spent the first hours just trying to get my bearings, wandering through rooms that looked like they belonged in a museum. A grand ballroom with a chandelier the size of my car. A dining room with a table that could seat 30. And a library. 2 stories high, walls lined with books from floor to ceiling, a spiral staircase in the corner. It was the only room that felt remotely lived in. I started unpacking the few boxes of books I'd brought with me, my own little piece of home. I found a spot for my favorite, a worn copy of Moby Dick, on the 3rd shelf from the top, all the way to the left. A perfect spot. I stood back, admiring it for a second, before heading out to the kitchen to find a glass of water. The kitchen was a stainless steel cavern, cold and sterile. I found a glass, filled it from the tap, and drank it down, the silence of the house pressing in on me. When I went back to the library, something was off. I scanned the shelves. There it was, my copy of Moby Dick. It was now on the 4th shelf, dead center. I frowned. My fingers traced the worn spine. Did I put it there? No, I was sure I hadn't. I could picture myself stretching just a bit to place it on the 3rd shelf. Must be tired, I told myself. The long drive, the stress, I'm just mixed up. Shaking my head, I moved the book back to its original spot, 3rd shelf, far left. I made a point to press it firmly into place, as if that would stop it from moving again. What a stupid thought. That night, I woke up with my mouth feeling like sandpaper. The bedside carafe was empty, so I slipped out of the massive bed and padded barefoot down the main staircase. The house was even quieter at night, if that was possible. Pitch black, except for the pale moonlight filtering through the towering windows. As I reached the bottom floor, I heard something. A sound so faint I almost missed it. Music. A tinny, delicate melody, like a child's lullaby. It seemed to be coming from the dining room. My skin prickled. I moved toward the arched doorway, my hand sliding along the cold wall. The music box tune grew a little louder, then stopped, just like that, cut off mid-note. I froze in the doorway, my heart thumping against my ribs. I waited. Nothing. I reached inside, my fingers fumbling for the light switch. the room flooded with the brilliant, harsh light of a dozen crystal fixtures. It was empty. The long, polished table was bare, gleaming under the lights. Except, in the very center, there was a small, antique music box made of dark wood. I knew, with a certainty that made me sick, that it hadn't been there when I toured the house earlier. One of the staff must have left it. It was the only logical explanation. But why would they be playing it in the middle of the night in the dark? The feeling of being watched was so strong it was almost a physical touch on the back of my neck. I backed out of the room, not taking my eyes off the little box until I was back in the hall. I didn't get my water. I just went back upstairs and locked my bedroom door. The next morning, I tried to push it all out of my head. The book, the music box. Jason had left a note saying he'd been called away on business again, but would be back by dinner. He'd laid out a set of simple house rules. Don't go into the room at the end of the West Wing hall. The door is always locked for a reason. And please, darling, don't leave the grounds after sunset. Eccentric rich people stuff, I told myself. I decided to get dressed and act like this was my home, my life. I stood in front of a huge gold-framed mirror in the upstairs hall, adjusting the collar of my shirt. I gave myself a small, reassuring smile in the reflection. The reflection smiled back. I dropped my hands, and my smile faded. The smile on the woman in the mirror did not. It stayed there, plastered on her face, for a full second after mine was gone. My breath hitched. I took a step back, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my chest. No, I just imagined that. I raised my right hand, waving it tentatively. In the mirror, the reflection's hand came up too, but it was slow, lagging, like a bad video connection. The motion wasn't clean. It was a fraction of a second behind my own. This wasn't fatigue. This wasn't stress. This was real. I stared at the woman wearing my face, mimicking my terror with a slight delay. If that wasn't me, if it wasn't my reflection, then what the hell was it? The thought screamed through my mind. Is it copying me, or is it learning to be me? I turned and practically ran, not daring to look back. The rest of the day was a blur of forced calm. I tried reading, but the words swam. I tried walking in the gardens, but every shadow looked like it was moving. When Jason's car crunched up the gravel driveway that evening, a wave of relief washed over me. He was real, solid. He stepped inside, handsome and smiling, looking completely out of place in this cold, perfect mausoleum. He kissed me, his lips warm. "Everything all right, Amelia? You look a little tense." I opened my mouth to tell him about the book, the music box, the goddamn mirror. But the words wouldn't come. How could I? He'd think I was crazy. He must have seen the hesitation on my face. He smiled that easy, disarming smile of his and reached out, tucking a stray piece of hair behind my ear. "You know," he said, his voice a low, casual murmur, "my mother used to say the mirrors in this house are special. Sometimes they just take a little while to get used to a new face." A cold dread, heavier and deeper than anything I'd ever felt, settled in my stomach. He knew. It wasn't a flaw in the house. It was a feature. Later that night, trying to distract myself before bed, I walked down a long hall lined with portraits of Jason's ancestors. Stern-looking men and pale, serious women, all staring out from under layers of aged varnish. I stopped at one in particular, a woman from the late 1800s, noted as the wife of Jason's great-grandfather. She had sad eyes and a tightly pulled-back bun. Something about her drew me in. My eyes scanned the dark oil paint, then locked on to a detail on her dress. A brooch. Pinned to her high collar was a small, intricately carved spider made of green jade. My blood ran cold. I felt the air leave my lungs in a rush. It was the exact same brooch Jason had given me as a welcome gift. the very same one that was sitting on my vanity in the bedroom right now. Sleep was impossible. I sat by the enormous window in our room, hugging my knees to my chest and staring out into the manicured darkness of the grounds. The moon was bright, casting long skeletal shadows from the trees. Just as my eyes started to feel heavy, a soft hissing sound started up from below. The sprinklers. Arcs of water sprayed across the perfect lawn, glittering under the moonlight. I watched them, my mind numb. Then I saw it. In a flower bed near the edge of the woods, the powerful jets of water were washing away the dark topsoil. Something pale was being uncovered. At first, I thought it was a strange root or a discarded garden statue. But it wasn't a root. The water cleared away more dirt, revealing its shape. It was a hand, a human hand. The fingers were thin, bony, and curled upwards, as if reaching for something that wasn't there. I didn't sleep. How could I? The image of that pale, skeletal hand reaching up from the flower bed was burned onto the back of my eyelids.